I got to ask about what are your early returns on? I'm calling it the Lowe's bubble, the pseudo bubble, the mini bubble, whatever terminology you like. But the Saints are going to great lengths to try to keep themselves healthy and within the protocols. What are your what's the early feedback?
Well, they've been discussing this for a long time, probably at least a month. I mean, I heard about the bubble in early July, and at the time, the idea was to put everyone in the bubble and not have them leave. But, that's so hard with players and families. And also the NFL, I'm not quite sure where it stands now, but the NFL balked at having meetings in the hotel. I think the NFL wants everyone to have meetings at their own facility. But it just shows the lengths the Saints are going to protect their players this season. I mean, the Saints basically told everyone, we have a real shot here, guys, and everyone's got to be on board with that because they really do have a chance to win a Super Bowl. So everyone's got to make sacrifices this year if the season goes off as scheduled and into scheduled. And I think most of these players understand that. It's a lot of veteran guys. They want to win a Super Bowl, and they're willing to, I guess, I don't want to say be uncomfortable, but make sacrifices over the next 6 months. So it'll be interesting to see how it works, but I do think it's a smart idea.
Yeah, were you surprised how quickly the Saints cut some of their roster down, or this is a veteran team going to be difficult to go ahead and get some numbers down?
The only one I was really surprised about was Taylor Stalwart. I thought that maybe most of the guys cut early would be kind of these guys that you hadn't even heard of. They did keep a backup punter, which I found was interesting. Maybe they just want someone in camp to, I don't know, let Morstead have a break. I'm sure there's some theory behind that. Stalwart was the one I was most curious about because he was actually someone I debated having on my 53-man roster, and then I realized when I looked at it, I had too many defensive tackles on the roster. So I thought they would at least keep him around to, I guess, give him a look, but maybe they just thought, hey, we know what we have in this guy, and he's just not going to cut it this year in our rotation. So I found that interesting.
Sean Payton says, don't call this camp. So if he's not on a normal camp schedule, what would you equate this schedule to? A combination of OTAs / mini camp / regular? What would you equate what their schedule is right now to?
Well, it kind of feels like OTAs or even before OTAs. It's weird. Like, we don't even get to see the team practice until August 17th. When they put on pads, and normally we would have been out in practice. I mean, I'd probably be at practice or in the media room literally right now if it was a normal year, and that's so odd. It just, he's right, it doesn't have the feeling of camp, and I say that, and I'm not even there. But I think he kept saying that because he wasn't entirely pleased with the solution they came up with. He kept saying, the NFLPA, this is the schedule they gave us, this is the schedule we have to stick to. But you know how coaches are. If it's not in their control, they don't really like it, but they're going to accept it. So I found that entire phone call funny just because he didn't really seem super happy.
Kat, with a roster that seems already almost set, what are some positions that you'll be paying attention to when everything does kind of ramp up, as far as these will kind of be the last spots on the 53-man roster?
There's a couple of positions I'm going to be looking at. Linebacker is one of them. I just want to see who plays next to Demario Davis. With the amount of nickel the Saints play, they really only need two solid linebackers, and they're going to be playing a lot more defensive backs, even maybe more than some other teams would, with C.J. Gardner-Johnson probably being their nickel back. And, of course, the quarterback competition is one that everyone's going to be looking at. I want to see if Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston wins that backup spot, although I do think that's honestly going to go to Winston. I say that before having even seen them. Cornerback, at least towards the back end, is going to be interesting. And then the one I always love is the wide receiver battle, because sometimes the Saints, or a lot of times the Saints, find these unknown guys and they crack their roster, and it's really fun to see them develop from the beginning of camp to the end. Now, of course, everything is kind of squished into 3 weeks that we get to watch it, but hopefully someone will emerge and we'll have some camp star to talk about, and I'm looking forward to that.
Kat, the signing of Nigel Bradham kind of went under the radar. I know with everything going on, it's kind of hard to, pump up a late signing of this, nature. But given Alex Anzalone's injury issues, and the same with Kiko Alonso, and Zach Bond is a rookie, does Bradham become that rare player that is signed late to this veteran team that really looks like he's got the inside track to be a starter?
Well, it's kind of funny when they put out the release that they signed him or whoever put it out. I looked on Twitter, and you know how Twitter is. All the Eagles fans were saying, good, he was horrible. But I think fans always say that, if they were a superstar, they would still be with the team. So I don't know. I think Kiko Alonso, no one expected him to be thrown in right away, although the Saints looked at him as a starter even before Anzalone got hurt. So maybe it turns out that way. And it's good to have some depth right now. You really don't know how long Alonso's going to take to recover from that ACL. And then Anzalone's had one season where he didn't get hurt. So they know they need to have at least one backup plan. So he's got a guy I'd really like to watch at camp as well.
Kat, after the draft, we had all of the Saints draft class on the show, and they all seemed like extremely sharp young men and guys that could catch on pretty quickly. But obviously, they're up against it because they haven't had a typical offseason. And so when you look at the 4 drafted rookies, do you think any of those guys will struggle because they didn't have the offseason, or do you think there's a plan for all 4 of them?
I think Troutman might struggle the most. And I say that because I don't even know how they're going to use Tommy Stevens, and they're not relying on him as any sort of starter as far as I know. He even makes the roster. So Troutman is the guy I look at as you're already coming from a small school. You already have to make the leap to the NFL. That's a really big kind of head-spinning move already, and he didn't even get the benefit of OTAs. So now he's going to be thrown in, and he's got to do all this really quickly. And that's a little different than Ruiz, who has his own struggles, I guess, as if he's going to be the starting center. And at this point, I don't know that he will be. He needs to learn all the calls, the protections, and then he's got, again, 3 weeks to prove to them that that's where he belongs. And I guess they could start Ruiz at guard if they don't feel comfortable with that short amount of time. But that's going to be interesting. And then Bond, man, all of them have their own task at hand. I mean, he's got to learn multiple positions. So I think it's a good thing the Saints have a small draft class this year. I mean, at the time, we were like, who knows if this is a good thing or not, but imagine trying to teach 11 rookies and fit them all on the roster in this weird offseason we've had.
I loved Bond's first tweet after he got drafted, or his first trip to New Orleans, which I think was in May. He said, man, it's really hot here. It's like, wait till August.
He had no idea. No idea.
On that Cesar Ruiz, what do you think the original plan was? Sean Payton has been very coy about that, whether his original plan was for Ruiz to be at center and McCoy to be a guard or the other way around. What do you think his preference is, or did he even have one?
Well, I kind of feel stupid for not taking the hint even more. I think Jeff predicted Ruiz to go in the first round to the Saints. I don't think I had him, but I did say it was a possibility because at the Combine, when we were talking to people, myself and Larry Holder, the talk at the Combine was, we're not happy with Larry Warford. We don't like how he played, and we think McCoy could possibly move to guard. That should have been like a big hint that they were going to specifically draft a center. Now, I took that hint and said, obviously Warford's going to get cut, and I was pounding that drum all offseason. But, I mean, I think that they've been considering moving McCoy to guard since the end of the season. So I think if there was an ideal world, Ruiz would absolutely be their starting center no matter what, unless he just came to camp and totally fell on his face. And I don't think he's going to do that. But now I really don't know. I just don't know how many weeks they need to feel comfortable with this guy being at center. So I wish I knew, but I don't.
Kat, having Alvin Kamara in camp, I think, is big for the Saints. There was a lot of discussion about his contract. Would he sit out? Would he hold out for more money? We have not heard that at all from him, and I think that is positive going forward. And his health, was something to pay attention to coming into this season. And so I think he's going to have a bigger season this year than he did a year ago. And now you've also, you've got a guy behind him that has proven that he can take some workload off him as well. Do you think that a contract, though, gets done at some point during this season?
Well, I think he kind of became hamstrung by the new CBA. Really, it almost eliminates holdouts just on the language. When I looked at it, I was like, oh, there's he can't hold out because that means teams can't pay back their fines. For anyone who didn't know that, so a lot of times these fines the teams forgive them, so it's not that big of a deal. But I think if he's really right about how he was playing on one leg, that's what he said in an interview, then he should be able to return to his 2018 stuff. I don't know why he wouldn't. It's not like, we're talking about a 35-year-old guy. I just think they have to strike the right balance. And at the beginning of last season, we were talking about, well, can Kamara carry the load? And he said he could and he wanted to, but maybe he shouldn't have to. Maybe it should be more like the load he shared with Ingram, and they should just do that going forward. Because as you said, he is an incredibly capable backup who performed just fine. So they're going to have to strike that balance and make sure he stays healthy. But, yeah, I mean, of course, I think you could see the Kamara of old. It's not as if he was bad last year. It's just, you set such a high bar. People expect that all the time.
Terrell is our guest, covering the Saints for The Athletic. Have you heard anything from Jameis Winston, about Jameis Winston? He's been very quiet, but, again, during the shutdown, during the pandemic, most of the players were out of reach, out of touch. So not saying that's a bad thing at all, but are we getting any feedback on how he's adjusting to life with the Saints?
Well, I do know, based on something Bree said the other day, is that he's been reaching out to Drew a lot to talk about the offense and concepts and things like that. And that's a really good sign to me that he doesn't think, oh, well, I can handle this on my own. I mean, everyone knows the Saints offense is pretty complex. It's not something you can just soak in a day. I mean, it takes a lot of work. And the fact that he is reaching out to Drew is a good sign because, what better teacher than Drew Brees? So we'll see how he does, but I'm sure the last few years definitely humbled him, and I do think the Saints have always had the theory that they can fix what the Bucs couldn't fix. Now, I don't know if that's true. Every team thinks they can fix a player, and often they're wrong. But I get their thinking behind signing him. I mean, he came cheap, he's young, and maybe his problems can be fixed. So that's really all I know right now. I hope that we get to see him on the field soon. I mean, like you said, it's been so quiet. I want to see what this guy looks like now.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. We'll look forward to talking when camp starts, or whatever Sean Payton considers camp starts. We'll look forward to talking with you again.
12 days. Can't wait.
Thanks a lot, Terrell with The Athletic.